Welcome back. I'm glad you've taken the opportunity to stop and read the goal setting chapter and to do the assignment Goal Setting for Change. Did you remember to sign it and date it? Did you make that contract with yourself? I'm glad. That is really a great thing. In the book, you've noticed and you heard about some other ways to set goals, how to set those up into bite-sized pieces. One of the biggest problems that directors often encounter is that of the time management component that goes along with the goal setting. This can be the difference between a successful program and a program that fails. If you do not make time to do the business part of your program, you have no students or money. We get directors who come through this program all the time who go, I just don't have time. If you don't make the time to market your program, to do your payroll, first of all, if you don't do your payroll, I'm sure your staff will remind you. But if you don't take care of the business parts of your business, there's nothing we can do. Pull out your goal setting for change assignment. I'll wait. All right, got it? We're going to use mine to see how effective time management can make a difference if I get the project completed. All right, so I've got mine right here. Da-da-da. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about in the book was that you can set goals for education, family, financial, health, professional, social, and spiritual. It is so important as a director to be balanced. Make sure you've got all those areas covered. If you set the goal for the easy one, you're like, this is the easy one. I know I want to lose 10 pounds. Is that really the easy one for you? How balanced are you at your program? All right, so I set a long-term goal. Now, I realize that a lot of us are always thinking, I'm not quite as physically fit as I want to be, or maybe there's something else along the way. I set a long-term goal that I wanted to lose 40 pounds by December. Okay, really? I really set that as that's an ultimate goal. I would be so excited if that actually happened. But some of the things that I knew I needed to do was related to refining my goal. What were the things I was going to do to break those down? Okay? I would like to walk on the treadmill every day. I would like to not have as much coffee. I would like to not have dessert with every meal. Then I had to sit down and decide what was really important to me. What were my objectives? What were my risks and benefits? So what is the risk if I don't have dessert with every meal? What are the benefits? My objective 2, again, what was important here? Okay. I looked at my diet as well as my exercise. What was I putting into my mouth and what was I doing with my body? What's going to be my method or strategy and when I'm going to have this completed by? Well, some of this, I was like, how could I make sure that I got out there and I did that exercise every day like I said I was going to? Well, I made a commitment to my family and I got my family involved and now we're set to run a 5K. I'm going to run or walk a 5K and we're going to do that in 3 months. That was a good short-term goal for me. For some folks, that's a long-term goal, but for me, that was a short-term goal. I knew I could get myself motivated to hit that goal. Other people, they might just say, I want to be able to walk a certain distance in 2 weeks. That's a great short-term goal when it comes to your physical fitness. Whose support was I going to need? Well, in my case, I have 4 kids and a husband. I needed my family's support. But, sometimes you want somebody else. So I've got a running buddy or a walking buddy, depending on the day. I have an exercise buddy. I got a couple of them. I got a couple of them that are just online buddies that we kind of tell each other when we've exercised. And of course, I've signed my self-contract. When you're setting your goals, you want to make sure that they're specific and they're measurable, they're obtainable, and they're timely. So now that I've talked through my goal, the next thing I do is I pull out my calendar. And guess what the first thing was I put on there? When was my 5K? I had to put my 5K on there because I had to know, when did I have to reach that milestone? And we talked earlier in the previous section about outcome versus tasks. That's real hard when it comes to things like exercise. It is real easy for me to do my task goals, but my outcome goals, sometimes my body doesn't move the way I want it to. You know, I may think that I've been doing all this walking and running, and I should have been able to lose 10 pounds by that time. Sometimes your body doesn't always agree. So I pull out my calendar for the week, and you'll see a variety of tools and notes. If I don't put it on the calendar and I don't give it a time, everyone knows what is a good time for them and what is not. I know that if I'm going to walk or I'm going to exercise every day, I have to do it as soon as I get up in the morning. If I don't, I just never manage to get those workout clothes on. I don't like to change my clothes 3 times, and I only want to take 1 shower. So if I do it when I first get out of bed, I'm good to go. And my accountability is there, and I know it's a good time for me. My husband, he likes to work out after work. So obviously we knew right then and there that we were not going to be good exercise buddies. Find a time, put it on your calendar. If it's related to your program and you have a goal that you're going to talk to a certain number of families every week and you're going to get out there and network, find out when those networking functions are. Put them on your calendar. If you haven't put them on their calendar, they're not going to happen. If you're not a morning person, don't tell your staff that you will be there in the morning to open and greet parents. If you're not a morning person, why do you want to be there at 6:30 in the morning to meet your parents? Commit to being there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon as all your children leave. Get excited about what works for you. You're the director. You're the one in charge. These goals and the use of time management has to be reflected on what works best for you. And I often hear directors go, "Oh, I have to be there then because nobody else will work that shift." Really? You can't find anybody else in your city or just anybody else on your staff? Sometimes directors need to make sure that they put themselves as a priority to the program. It's you, it's the program, then your staff, as far as the time management's concerned. You need to hire the people you need for the times you need them. If your business goal was to have 10 more students in 3 months, then you will need to make sure that you have had time scheduled for at least 30 program tours. Put these on your schedule. Write tour, Tuesday, 1 o'clock, Thursday, 4 o'clock. Again, this is where getting your staff involved is important. Find out from your staff, when's a good time for a family to tour their room. You want to make sure that you have these blocks so that when a family calls, you can say, "I have an opening to do a tour at Tuesday at 1 or Thursday at 4. Which one of those dates works best for you?" So if you're going to do 30 tours in 30 months, you've got to do 3 tours a week. What times are good for your staff? Put those on the calendar, and when someone calls, you put them in one of those spots. The first part of implementing a goal that has a plan is to make sure that you give it a time. Give it a time, give it a date, and put it on your calendar. Second is to be accountable. For some, this is simple, is self-control. Others need to put it on the fridge. They need to tell others. They need the support of that coach or that mentor. Now, in your textbook, you have a section on time management, and you have a time management self-assessment. I want you to pause this video, and do that self-assessment. And then we're going to come back. All right, time self-assessment. How well do I use my time? This test is a quick and fun way to get the self-assessment process started. Circle the number that best indicates your normal working behavior. Now be honest with yourself. This exercise will show you what you're doing well and where you could improve. Did you add up your
time there were 3 little pigs, and they were all living together, and they decided that it was about time that they moved out of the house and all got their own houses. So they didn't want to move too far apart from each other, but they didn't want to be really close together. So the first one, excuse me, so they were walking along, and the first one sees this nice spot, and he's like, oh, okay, I'll make my house here. And he's looking around, what can I build my house out of? And then this farmer walks by, and he's like, oh, look, somebody to talk to. Hi, farmer. And so they get talking, and he goes back to the farmer's farm, and they're talking and hang out with the animals. And the farmer says, oh, I brought some extra hay. Do you want it for anything? It's left over from feeding my animals. He's like, sure. He goes back and he builds his house out of hay and straw. And then the second pig built found a spot just a couple blocks away where he decided to build his house. It was near a nice patch of woods, and he's like, what do most people build their house out of? Wood. So he goes into the woods and he finds sticks and stuff and builds his own house and designs it all himself, and it looks okay. And then the third pig decides that he needs, building materials and a plan and all that. So he goes into town and he buys he hires a man to draw a building pattern for him. And he takes the plan and he sees what he needs, stone and mortar and stuff like that. And so he builds his own house with the plan that the artist drew him. And then one day there's a wolf walking by, and he sees this pig hanging out outside his house. He's like, pork chops. And so he goes up to the pig, and the pig goes, ah, wolf, and runs inside his house. He's like, that's not very nice. He knocks on the door, and he says, little pig, let me in. And the pig says, not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin. And he goes, if you don't let me in, I will huff, and I will puff, and I will blow your house down. And he says, no way. And the wolf blows his house down, since it's made of straw. And the pig goes, ah, and he runs all the way up to the second pig's house. And he goes, brother, there is a wolf chasing after me. Is your house sturdy? He says, yeah, I made it myself out of sticks. And the wolf comes along, and he's like, ooh, 2 pigs. A nice dinner for my whole family. And he So he goes, pigs, 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 let me in. And they say, not by the hairs on our chinny chin chins. And he says, if you do not let me in, I will blow your house down. And they say, no way. And so he blows their house down. And they go, ah, and run up to the third brother's house. And they say, brother, 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 let us in, let us in. A wolf is chasing after us. So the brother lets them in, and they hide underneath the covers. And they're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And the wolf knocks on the door and says, little pigs, let me in. And they say, not by the hairs on our chinny chin chins. And he says, if you do not let me in, I will blow your house down. And the third brother says, no way, I made this house myself. And so the wolf goes, and nothing happens. And so it's like, I will have pork chops for my family and me tonight. I'm going to get into that house. So he climbs up the wall and he gets into the chimney. And they can hear him like sort of wiggling down the chimney, and they're like, that ain't Santa Claus. So they make a big pot of stew, and they put it on the fire. And it starts to boil as the wolf is like shimmying down the chimney. And then he drops down into the pot of stew, and they have wolf stew that night instead of pork chops.
Everyone thinks that The Three Pigs is a story about time management and how some people don't take the time that they need to do things properly. It's not really a story about time management. It's a story about management styles. It all depends on when the wolf shows up as to which management style is the most effective in any given situation. How long does it take to build a straw bale house? A house made out of straw and mud? Not very long. However, building a house made out of sticks, or what we tend to call log cabins, takes a little bit more time. You have to get the wood, you have to cut it down, you have to lay it out, you have to chink it. The last pig, the pig that built the house out of stone or bricks, his took the longest to build. So the question is, who's the smart pig? It's not a story of one smart pig and two dumb pigs. If the wolf had shown up 3 weeks in, and we have built just a simple mud daub house out of straw and mud, you can do that in a couple weeks. So if the wolf had shown up 3 weeks in, we've got 2 pigs living in tents and 1 pig in a house. Who's the wolf going to go after? Similarly, if the wolf comes in a couple months after they leave home, we've got 1 tent pig. That would be the pig who's trying to get together enough money to buy all of the supplies he needs. And we have 1 living in a straw house, and we have 1 living in a wooden cabin. Who's got the sturdiest house now? The second pig, the pig who was the opportunist, or to use our management styles terms, the entrepreneur. The first pig is an integrator. He made friends. And because he made friends with that farmer, the farmer was willing to give him the supplies he needed and was willing to help him build it. The third pig, that pig who has to have everything done just right, the one who has to have plans, the one who has to have all the correct building supplies, that pig would be what we call, have you guys figured it out? Okay, that pig would be our administrator. It needs to be done right. If you're not going to do it right, why bother doing it at all? So sometimes the wolf doesn't show up for 6 months or a year. And so having everything done exactly right and by the book is the management style you need. But sometimes the pig shows up 2 days after you get your job as the director. Sorry. Sometimes the wolf shows up 2 days after you start being the director. We get a lot of people who come to our trainings because
They were thrust into the position of being the director. This was not their lifelong ambition. They worked at a program who needed a director, and they had most of the qualifications that they needed, but not all. If you're in one of those situations where you're in an emergency, then being that administrator is not necessarily the best management style. Sometimes, if you're an administrator, you need to abandon that because the wolf is at your door today and you're living in a tent. So knowing your management style and knowing who on your staff is of the different management styles can really help you out. So I hope you enjoyed the 3 little pigs. Okay, once you've decided how to handle the woman in the parking lot, you're going to go into your office, and as you would expect, since you've been gone for several days, there's a lot of stuff on your desk. A sample of what might be on your desk is in Appendix 3, so I want you to go ahead and flip to Appendix 3. If you're with a small group, you can do this with them. Otherwise, just do it on your own. You can talk through it or just open it up and mess with it and decide what things are going to be handled in what way. Remember the tips that Kate taught you on time management. You're going to want to go ahead and make a list, decide what is a first priority, second priority, third priority, and go ahead and file what needs to be filed. Touching paper just once or at the most twice will make your time management much more effective. So go ahead and take a moment now to sort through all of that. Pause the video and come back when you're ready to go. Thanks. Bye. Okay, Joe, that makes a lot of noise. Should we pause it?
Oh, the cups?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay.
If you need to cut, just go like 1, 2, and that'll be an easy.
Okay.
Easy cut.
1, 2. Okay. So now that you've done the activity, let's talk a little bit about where the rubber meets the road for time management. Crises happen way too frequently in childcare. And sometimes the crisis is something like a parent who's upset about a biting incident, but sometimes it's staff who call in sick, or CCMS saying, oh, they didn't receive your billing, or CCDS, or CC, whatever the child care block grant is called in your area, or some other funding source, or a parent who shows up who was not scheduled for a tour. If we don't have those lists that we talked about of what you need to do today, those little things can derail us very easily. Even if you have a list, those emergencies can derail you and make the entire day much less productive than it could otherwise be. So these crisis moments really make or break your ability to handle your time. The first rule I want to teach you about this is if somebody needs an answer to a question right now, your answer needs to be no. Say this with me. No. For a lot of directors, this is one of the hardest things they can do, both with their clients and with their staff. They want to make things work for them. Staff want to know if they can have next Thursday off because their fiance is graduating or getting a promotion. Or you have clients who have something happen in their life and they want to pay tuition late. If they need to know right now, the answer needs to be no. Decide in haste, regret at your leisure. I like to say this is what teenage pregnancy is all about. Deciding in haste and having a long time to think about whether that was the right decision. I don't want you to decide in haste and have to live with that for the next 6 months. Someone comes in and goes, oh, my husband's car's broken down, and so I need to change shifts from being the opener to being the person who comes in at 9 o'clock. I've already talked about it with Susie, so can we do that? No, if they need to know right now. Your staff will pretty quickly learn that if they ask a question and you say, do you need an answer to that right now? To say, no, you can think about that because they get tired of the no's. So having forms that they fill out when they need time off, 1, 2, 3, having forms that they fill out when they need time off or when they want to change shifts or if they need a payroll advance. This will save you from a time management point of view. Same thing with parents who want extensions on their tuition. Here's a couple samples. What? Okay. So these are some of the forms that you can use that will help you from a time management point of view. The other thing I want you to think about from a time management point of view is taking 5 minutes. When that crisis situation happens, when you have someone who walks in the door with an emergency or something that they at least perceive as an emergency, if you can take just a couple minutes to center yourself, whether it's to rant in your head about, I'm sorry that you didn't read your handbook, but this has always been the policy, or to problem solve because you can see that this is going to be something that you're going to need to work through. Taking that little bit of time will be really, really helpful. Seems counterintuitive when we're talking about time management, but it's really key. When I talk about this, frequently people go, well, won't the person feel like they're being put off? Not if you do it right. Instead of just saying, I can't get to you right now. Can you go sit in the office? I'll be with you in 5 minutes. If instead you say, you know what? It looks like we're going to really need to talk about this. Why don't you sit down here? I'm going to go get myself a glass of water. Would you like one? Or you can insert coffee or tea or crackers, whatever. That works pretty well. So let me make sure that we're able to do this. I'll get you a cup of coffee. I'll get me a cup of coffee and we'll sit down and talk. That gives you the amount of time it takes you to go get the coffee and come back to think through or to vent a little bit inside your head. If that doesn't work for you, you can say, let me just check with all the teachers and let them know that I'm going to be unavailable for the next few minutes so that no one interrupts us. Go ahead and sit down. I'll be right with you. Then again, you have the time it takes to go check with each of your teachers and let them know that you're going to be unavailable for the next 10, 15 minutes to process and also to allow them to calm down. This shows respect. You care about what their issue is, so you want to make sure that you're not interrupted. If all else fails, use your body as an excuse and say you have to run to the restroom. You need some time when you're dealing with someone in crisis mode or you feel your adrenaline kick up, so you're starting to be in crisis mode. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about here with time management is at the beginning of the meeting, set an expectation for how long this conversation is going to be. You can also do this on phone calls when you call and say, is this a good time to talk? I have something I need to discuss with you. It's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes. That way they know they don't have an hour and a half to talk to you about this issue. They have the amount of time that is reasonable. If when you say, okay, so I've got about 15 minutes for this, let's go ahead. If they say, oh, I think this is going to take a lot longer, you say, well, let's see how far we can get in this half an hour. And if we need more time, we can come back to it. But, I do need to insert here. It may be that you need to go to the grocery store to buy milk for the center. It may be that you have to go do a van run. It may be that licensing is scheduled to be there. It may be that you have to talk to the health department about new requirements. Using what is the next thing on your list as the reason why you can only talk for a half an hour, really it's valid. It goes back to those keys to professionalism, being honest. It's important. Tell them honestly. You don't have 3 hours to talk about the fact that they're having trouble with their teenage child. Yes, you want to spend time with them. You want to have a relationship with them, but you don't have an infinite amount of time. We have two things that we really have a finite amount, time and money. And you can invest time, you can invest money, You can spend time, spend money, or you can waste them. I don't want you to waste time with your clients. I want you to invest time with your clients. The same with your staff. So take 5 minutes. If they need an answer right now, cut. If they need an answer right now, the answer is no. If they need an answer right now, the answer is no. Okay, maybe we should just have a screenshot here of the 3 keys. Don't allow yourself to be in crisis mode. It will derail your time management. Number 2, if they need an answer right now, the answer is no. Take 5 minutes when someone brings you an issue. And third, set expectations for how long whatever discussion is likely to take, whether that's a tour of the program or a conference with a staff when you're doing their annual staff evaluation. These time management tools will save you an enormous amount of headache in the long run. Hi, okay, we're talking about time management. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to put you in a situation. So I want you to watch the following video and put yourself in the director's position. Okay, thanks. Okay, now, try that again. Okay, so you come back Monday morning early and you are greeted by this in the parking lot. Okay, so we're back. How would you handle that situation? Write down your answer to how you would handle that situation. If you're in a small group, discuss it with the other members of your group. You can turn it back. That didn't work real well. Okay, now how would you handle that situation? Write down your answers. If you're with a small group, go ahead and discuss it with your group. Stop the tape here and we'll come back. Okay, then they're back. And okay, now that you've dealt with that immediate crisis, go on in to, you're gonna put yourself in the same situation. You are that director. You come into your office, flip to Appendix 3, and everything that would be waiting on your desk is in Appendix 3. And decide how you would handle each of those things. And remember the tools that Kate taught you for time management. Write them all down, and that'll be your next assignment. That didn't work out well. Okay, now come on into your office as the director. Everything that would be on your desk is in Appendix 3. Look through it, decide how you're going to handle each of those items. Write all that down. You can make notes on your Section 3, Appendix 3, and discuss it with the group if you're with a small group. When you're done with that,
It's okay. Alright. Just breathe.
rewind it back to the beginning of that if you can. Okay, that does it for time management for today. But remember, time management is an ongoing process. You will get better over time. In your homework assignments, you do have a time self-assessment. There's another version, another copy of it in your textbook, because we would like you to come back and revisit it in 6 months. See how you're doing now and see how you're doing 6 months from now. It's a very wonderful part of your annual self-evaluation, just like you want to do evaluations of your staff once a year and of your students once a year. You also want to do one of yourself and see how you're doing. So keep coming back to the time management issue and see how you're doing. You'll get better and better and better the longer you're a manager.